Today I'm going to talk about assessment, Ormond's chapter 14 and 16, and a little bit about the No Child Left Behind paradox that is causing us to overclassify three main types of information in school systems instead of focusing on the whole picture as far as how students are educated and what a thriving student is. So first let's talk about Ormond. Informal assessment. It's an observation of student during the normal course of instruction. Listening, observing, spontaneous, unplanned things. It offers a flexible way of assessing, but it's pretty invalid, you could say. It doesn't compare across standards, and it doesn't allow us to make observations that are based on the standardized results of other people's assessments. That doesn't sound so bad if your ultimate goal is to improve the learning of that one specific student, but it can provide problems when dealing with a big picture sort of scenario where you're trying to improve the institution. The next one we have is formal assessment. Now, formal assessment are your pen and paper assessments. These are the ones where you have 1,000 kids sitting in a gym all studying for basically three main categories of things that are checked for on this school board level. Your reading, mathematics, sciences. Basically, a group of questions that have been shown to parse the information accurately enough that some students will fail and some students will succeed. And indeed, that's how those tests are verified, is if there's a certain percentage of people who are successful and a certain percentage of people who are not successful, those tests are deemed to be valid. Immediately, what comes to mind is those students who generally aren't successful on standardized tests aren't necessarily less inclined to learn. It's just that those standardized tests aren't measuring types of information that they've been correctly taught. For pen and paper testing, one thing that we run into consistently is that to standardize them, you essentially ignore all of the features of learning that have contributed to that score. You have no idea why they failed this test. You only know that they have a low score. There's a TED Talk, Dr. Brian Stetcher, Cultivating Thriving Schools. Schools look at three sets of variables to determine the success of that school. One, we have reading. Two, we have mathematics. And the third is the graduation rates. Those are generally the only three measures of success that a school board looks at to determine the health of a school. Now, that doesn't map very well onto realistic assessments of producing good students. If you went to the doctor and he only took your blood pressure, your heart rate, and your temperature, how much do you think he could know about your condition? Not every single condition can be measured by heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature. What are the things that make a student successful? What are some features of a thriving student? So we have one. The first one, students who know things. Students who know things about the world. So they know math, they know science, right? But they also know things about other countries. They know things about what's going on in the world around them. They understand what the market is, what people are doing in general around them. Number two, students who can do things. Now this is often just completely ignored by standardized testings. What can you do? Do you have skills? Do you have some technology skills that you've learned in school? Can you sit down and make a PowerPoint? Or can you convince someone of something? Three, students who are healthy. Do they know about how to take care of themselves? Nutrition. Do they know how to stay active? Do they know any sports? Do they have good habits, good personal habits? Four, students who can work well with others. It's how well you collaborate, how well you interact with your groups. And one of the main reasons for promotion later on in life is your ability to interact and share the knowledge you have. Number five, students who are resilient psychologically. We want high self-confidence. We want good self-esteem. We want somebody who's going to make decisions that are positive for themselves and the community around them in the future. Everybody's going to run into issues, but people who are resilient psychologically, who show what psychologists call high implicit self-esteem, are resistant to negative influences, are resistant naturally to potentially harmful things. Number 6, students who become good citizens. So we want someone to be engaging with the community and who votes, who interacts with the public around them. So we have these 6 features. They know things, they can do things, they're healthy, they work well with others, they're resilient psychologically, and they become good citizens. That would be a thriving student and the product of, therefore, a thriving school. The measurements of reading, writing, and graduation rate don't address any of these issues. They touch on number 1, students who know things, but they don't even really go into the application. So once you've identified a good student, you need to learn how to measure them. But the truth is, if you can't count it, it essentially doesn't count. So we need to find countable measures for these facets of success and test whether these facts apply to the schools that are producing the students. So we need to hold schools accountable in terms of record keeping. The second suggestion, observations. There should be independent formal assessments of measures of function in these schools across these domains. Should 1, be published, 2, be used as a basis for reward or sanctions placed on the school in the future. And 3, it should be used to change the practices within that school on a regular basis to cultivate good schools.